Toronto Maple Leafs and the Utah Hockey Club, are they ready to make a possible trade? A blockbuster trade. We're going to discuss that here today. We're also going to discuss the latest around some of the other Toronto Maple Leafs pending unrestricted free agents. And we're also going to take a look at some guys, maybe some familiar names coming back to the Toronto Maple Leafs, some guys that have been linked to the Leafs. We're going to discuss all of that here in today's video. So if you like this content, want to see more of it, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, looking internally, let's start internally before we get to the fun rumors, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens here because all of these things are going to play up against each other. The first one being John Tavares. John Tavares, the former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, his contract comes to a conclusion this summer. And the question is, well, what's going to happen with JT? I don't necessarily think he's going to continue. He might end up retiring after this season. I think the situation has played out not necessarily where he's been driven out of Toronto, but it definitely hasn't gone the way that I think he had envisioned when he was younger and wanting to play for the Maple Leafs. And I think that when you consider where this team is at salary-wise and just the pure amount of players on this team, I don't necessarily know if they need John Tavares next season. So that's going to be something to watch because I think the development from some of these other things, it's probably going to leave like, well, do we re-sign John Tavares or do we keep around the next guy we're going to mention here in a minute? And that's Matthew Knies. Matthew Knies is the next one, and his situation's a little bit easier to stomach. He's an RFA. It's going to be a little bit easier to get across the finish line because they do have some control over him. So Matthew Knies is going to be a big one though for the Leafs. It's not that it's not a big one, but it'll be easier because it's not like a situation he's going to hit the free agent market July 1st. It's not necessarily going to work the same way. And then of course Mitch Marner, which Mitch Marner is the talk of hockey right now, and rightfully so because he's playing really well for the Leafs this year. And the question is, like, if the number is around 14 million, which we expect Marner and Darren Farris to try their level-headed best to get to that number, like, what is going to be like the scenario here? Because there's going to be fallout from the Leafs if that indeed is the case, right? You're not going to be able to fit Matthew Knies and Nylander and everybody else that's on the Leafs. You got to figure out something. So if they decide to go that route with Marner, they're going to have to move somebody out. And that might not be till the offseason. If that's what they do, they're going to ride this thing out. They're going to wait till the offseason. And I think, truthfully, if I'm the Leafs, you know the situation with Marner is he's been great during the regular seasons. But when you need that big goal in the playoffs, Marner hasn't necessarily been doing that. Are you going to make him the highest paid player on your team when he doesn't really show up in the playoffs? And this has been a narrative for the Leafs now for a decade. I think they're going to wait to see what he does this offseason. And we've heard rumors now for the past 2 years. We thought the last 2 years, this is number 16's last game as a Leaf. There's no way the Leafs come back on opening night with Marner. And they do. And here we are again. Here we are again before the season even concludes. Obviously different scenario because he's a free agent. But are we going to look at the final game of the Leafs season this year, whether that's lifting a Stanley Cup or losing in the first round again? Are we going to sit there and kind of wipe our hands and say, there is no way Mitch Marner plays another game with the Leafs? I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that. And to be honest with you, I'm not fully sure Marner knows what's going to happen because until he performs in the playoffs, it's going to be a hard sell on the Leaf fans. And I can guarantee you, like, Leaf fans forget quickly, but they still remember. Those are hardcore fans. They remember everything that happened the last negotiations with Mitch Marner. And it has tainted his reputation with the Leafs a little bit. Even though it's been so many years since then, I guarantee you that Leaf fans haven't forgotten that. And yes, he's the hometown boy and everything else, but there was a lot of other stuff going on there. And we know in the beginning of the season, he made it very clear he did not want to discuss negotiations the entire season with the media and all of that stuff. But we're getting to the point now where we're kind of wondering, you know, this might be one of the highest paid players in the National Hockey League next season, and he doesn't have a contract with his current team. and it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's something to talk about there, and then we'll get to kind of the, I guess what you would consider the more spicy side of the rumor, which is the possibility if Marner is potentially made in a swap. This is from the Hockey News. They said the Canucks and Utah Hockey Club could be options for Marner if he doesn't want to remain with the Maple Leafs. So that's very vague, because the problem with that is they're not really saying that the Canucks or the Utah Hockey Club have been linked to Marner. It's more so, well, it could be in the summer if he's a free agent. It could be in a trade. It's very vague. So that's one that I kind of take with a grain of salt. But we've also heard that maybe there could be some kind of swap where we see Clayton Keller go to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Mitch Marner. And what's interesting with that is that one definitely surprises me because of the circumstance with Keller in Utah. And it's kind of odd to me that they would make that move. And the reason I say that is Clayton Keller, he has 54 points in 49 games, right? And if I'm not mistaken, he's the captain of the Utah Hockey Club right now. So that definitely is something that does surprise me just a little bit. He's 26 years old, right around the same age as Mitch Marner. And like I said, both of these guys basically are close to 60 points already this season. You know, Marner has 58, Keller has 54. Like, whoa, like, we're not talking about a huge gap there. So, you know, I really would like to see something come to fruition for Marner, but the idea of swapping Keller for Marner is definitely puzzling. It's definitely interesting. I mean, it's not even like that's the only player that Utah has, right? Like, they have some good players already on the team. They have guys like Gunther, who's coming up, who could play really well with Marner, right? So that's kind of something to look at. And then the other things we were hearing about the Leafs and who they could be linked to. So let's just get to it here real quick. So the first one, this is all from Sportsnet, and they said Ryan O'Reilly, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, and Scott Lawton are potential center options for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think those are great options for the Leafs. And obviously Ryan O'Reilly, his ties to the Leafs makes a lot of sense there. That could definitely be a possibility. Brock Nelson would probably be more of a rental because I don't think the Leafs are going to have the cap space to keep Brock Nelson for a longer term thing. But I think Nelson would be a really good fit there. And whether he ends up being the second or third line center, probably second line center, I think that would be a great addition to the Leafs center core. And then you also consider Yanni Gourde and Scott Lawton. I really think Yanni Gourde's name is going to be, that's going to be a big pickup for somebody. Because I really like him out in Utah. I think Yanni Gourde and Jamie Alexiak, like, those are the guys nobody's really talking about right now because of, obviously, guys like Marner and Rantanen, who just got traded, and Elias Pettersson and JT Miller and all these other bigger names, Zegras, right? All these bigger names out there. Everybody wants the sexy picks. But I gotta say, a guy like Yanni Gourde or Scott Lawton, especially for a playoff team, especially a team like the Leafs, that's a perfect addition to that team. Perfect addition. Like, I really couldn't imagine a perfect addition better than that. And I think the experience they bring, Scott Lawton's been around the league for a long time. Yanni Gourde has cups with Tampa. So I think it'll be an interesting thing to see where the dominoes fall. Do we see a situation where they trade Marner for Keller, right? So you get that deal done. Now you fix your center core. Or do they go in the direction of, we're going to keep Marner, but then we're also going to add these other centers on top of that. And maybe they add another big defenseman. Maybe they decide to go back down that route again. We've seen them do it before. They might be willing to do it again, right? They're looking to win a Stanley Cup. They have Stanley Cup aspirations this season. They're going to look to do their best to get any of that done, right? So that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, want to see more videos like it, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again next time. Peace out.